Thank you, Laura, for that intro, and thank you for all of you that have attended. I still see some of you coming in. Again, I don't go as formal as Douglas Younger III. You can thank my parents for that. But the session today is about startups, fundraise every day of your life. And really that is my humorous approach to there is a correlation between your own personal financial position and that of your startup and how you're going to accomplish your goal of raising funds, which is getting working capital to accomplish your dreams. That's the primary purpose of this session. It'll be very interactive. Yes, I'm going to get you in the game, so you'll be chatting and doing different things. But the idea here is to give you a breadth of what the possibilities are when we say the term fundraising. Okay. You should also know before we go, if you drop questions in the chat, I'm pretty interactive. So real time, if you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, and then I can address them as we're going along. If I miss something, don't worry, I'll get back to it. Okay. All right. So you want to know a little bit more about me. Again, as Laura mentioned, I am also a founder and a CEO. I started 3 Steps Forward. It's a technology forward marketing group here in Silicon Valley. That's where I am right now. We provide different types of full service marketing support, including support on fundraising to startups, entrepreneurs, and small business. Just some things about me. I had a 20-year corporate career at Siemens, GE, Boston Scientific, Baxter. I did move into startups in the latter half of my career in rehabilitative robotics and imaging. I am a lecturer at Cal State University in their executive MBA program and Oberlin College. My own MBA I did at Case Western Reserve University. And I'll talk a little bit about how you've probably seen me around in town. My personal mission statement is hard earned, hard fought, and hard won. And I hope to make good on that in this session. In terms of my agency, we actually are in only our 3rd year, and you'll start to understand after this session what that means in terms of our own financial life. You will learn that we are an official partner of the Sacramento Kings. You will see me around as a judge in the pitch competition called Capitalize, which I encourage all of you on this call. You are in the jurisdiction of Capitalize, where you can get a shot at money, prizes. There's 6 months of complimentary services for my company, and there's even a few twists this year. So I definitely hope you check it out. We have over 60 clients, 30 marketers, and a whole variety of things to help you get through the valley of death. You'll probably see a lot more about me with this podcast. So boy, I have to intermittent fast down to these clothes that I have on here. But, in terms of our podcast, it's called Twist of Fate. It's a 4K video and audio podcast that we have already 28 episodes and 16 pre-recorded, 20,000 entrepreneurial and venture capital listeners. So this is a business edutainment session. So there are 2 new recordings planned in New York City and in Bay Area in January. My recommendation to all of you, if you think that your story could be inspiring to your fellow Sacramento entrepreneurs, why don't you come forward and fill out a form and become a guest on our show? It's totally free. So, and you don't have to fundraise for that. So definitely consider it. And I know I see a few names here that have already recorded, so it's our secret, but definitely I'm definitely looking forward to it. And I see there that I have a Case Western alumni out there. Fist bump to John Goldberg. So we'll talk offline. That's me and his thing. Okay, first, we're going to start this session with crowdsourcing an idea. So I would like all of you to listen through. I have my top 5 books that I recommend for fundraising, and you are going to put in your favorite book in the chat. But I know you didn't see this coming, so I'm going to get you warmed up. So first book, 800 Secrets for a Club. That 800 plus is related to credit scores. This is a book about how your personal credit rating can be improved. And there's a variety of strategies to do that. That is definitely going to be related to your fundraising for your startup, whether you like it or not. So this is something that I do advocate for. Number 2 is a book called How to Raise a Venture Capital Fund. A lot of you are going to be going for equity financing related to venture capitalists. It's important for you to understand how venture capitalists think. So this is a book that I recommend to you. The next two are related to crowdfunding. There's everything you need to know about raising money from the crowd. A lot of people love crowdfunding, but I can tell you, we helped raise $5.8 million in crowdfunding on the Seed Invest platform. And let me tell you, it stretched my people out on a rack. It is not just free money. It's a lot of work. And there's also trade-offs on why that's good, why that's bad. And that's another whole topic within itself. Next one's Kickstarter. If you have an idea that you think has legs in the popularity of the public, Kickstarter is a very interesting platform. I can also tell you, I went to college with the Kickstarter CEO currently. So, hey, we've seen a lot of things work and a lot of things fail. Last one, because I know there's the nonprofit executive directors that are close to my soul out there. There's a little book of gold called Fundraising for Small and Very Small Nonprofits. Fundraising and nonprofit, you guys don't know, I was an executive director at a gun violence prevention nonprofit that focused on the gun epidemic as a public health crisis, not a political one. Oh man, that's all about fundraising. You really need to think about that. I also included a little Harvard Business Review article called A New Model for Crowdsourcing Innovation, because I know that crowdfunding is a big thing. So with that, I want you to turn to your chats and type in there your favorite financial or business book. Maybe Jack Welch's Winning, maybe it's Jim Cramer. You could even write, hey, Doug, I haven't read a financial book. I don't believe that at all, but why don't you type in the chat there? I want everybody to get off the bench and in the game. There we go. And Laura did bring up a good point about slides. 0 to 1. Thank you, Brian. Brian's already getting loose, right? Rapid fire in the chat. Very good. Is there any other book takers there? Any other book takers? We could do better than one. Okay, there we go. Yep, Rich Dad, Poor Dad's a popular one. Every one of my sessions, people talk about that. The Knack, we have Lean Startup, great stuff. So just keep it flowing there, and I'm gonna make sure that I add these to the slide deck so that it's not lost, because I actually think it is important. Reading is a lost art. Nobody wants to read anymore, but guess what? You got to take time to better yourself. And with that, let's get rolling with this session. First interactive polling question. In the state of California, the Small Business Association, or the SBA, approved 320,000 payroll protection plans, PPP. Round 2 loans worth $2.1 billion. Here's the question for all of you. This is a hypothetical question, okay? Did your startup or small business get approved for the PPP, particularly round 2? And did you get forgiveness? I want all the above. Did you get a PPP round 2? Was it approved? Was it forgiven? Yes, no, or C, we have no employees. D, we have no revenue. Or E, what are you talking about, Doug? Sound off. A, B, C, D, or E. Just go for it. Go for it. Look, you guys should be loose. You already gave your book recommendations. Okay, there we go. We have a lot of C's. We got an A. All right. Look at Matthew on the path to fundraising. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about this one. If you did know that PPP is actually not just for if you had 1099 or W-2 employees, it's also for the founder themselves to get 2.5 times of what they would earn in a year through the pandemic. And I saw an EIDL taker. There we go. I saw an EIDL taker. Very good. Very good. So this is just something to get you warmed up. There are a variety of options. I know everybody's going to say, I want grants. I don't want any loans. But the truth is, fundraising or loans or grants or any of the different vehicles, it's actually about choice and options. You always want to be aware of the options available to you. So we're going to break this session down into 3 parts. Okay. There's going to be preparing for fundraising, both personally and your company. Fundraising like a champ is going to be understanding all the different options available to you. And then we're going to put it into practice. Throughout this, you'll see insights, recommendations, Harvard Business Review articles, definitely interactive questions, because I'm going to keep you engaged in an interactive game. I hope you guys are game players out there. You gotta be. A startup is definitely similar to gameplay. All slides will be downloadable and the session's recorded, so don't worry, kind of just embrace it and let's run with this, okay? Okay, First section, preparing your finances. Okay, now one comment that I want to start with is that working capital, okay? So when we're actually talking about fundraising, we're talking about in the pursuit of working capital, means funds that you will use for your business to obtain more growth in revenue, okay? Working capital, let me be clear, is a necessary evil of any business. The easiest financial way to calculate working capital is you take your revenue minus your costs annually, whatever's left over was working capital. And what you need to understand is when you start off, your costs are going to be through the roof, and until you get that first customer, your revenue is going to be low. So you got to have working capital. Like there's no way around it. And this is hence the term fundraise every day of your life, because it's about setting up your ability to survive over time. A great article in even that references is Understand the Economic Shock of the Coronavirus. Even the coronavirus has not changed the equation that it's really about surviving over a certain timeline, which is actually 5 years. And I'll show you data why that is. You really want to plan to fundraise, to create a runway that will last 5 years for your startup to stand up. And then now the business will take care of you, and your business's credit rating will be better than your own. And then now you're that, the founder that nobody wants around, right? Like that's the goal. We want to get you there. So let's talk about that. Okay. There's a simple equation to wealth. Okay. Like if I were to summarize what we have to do as business entrepreneurs, it's understanding that working capital is the force multiplier of growth. And this equation works like this. It's very simple. A founder with a social security number, which means they have an identified legal, let's say, credit rating, is going to recruit other founders, and you're going to get together and you're going to start a business, a startup. Said startup will have an EIN tax identification, which means it has its own financial life. The founder, the startup, will work together to develop working capital. Working capital is the pathway to generating revenue, which is accounts receivable, costs, which is account payable, and then to either take advantage of certain tax deductions or pay tax liabilities. This complex is what the name of the game is all about. Bottom line is this: you're going to start with a high cost position and a low revenue position, only offset by working capital, or a founder that's going to cut bacon off their butt, which is what a lot of us do, right? That's what we have to do. But the long-term strategy is building enough working capital that now you can invest in projects to reduce costs or to boost revenue or even to manage tax. The bottom line is this: everybody loves, in terms of employee life or personal employee life, everybody wants the raise, right? They want the revenue side. But the bottom line is, if you manage costs in your tax basis, the system works really well. This is an important concept, and even more so, exacerbated by this book, this article from Harvard Business Review. How fast can your company afford to grow? See, everybody wants more orders. But see, it may take a certain amount of working capital, process innovation to actually be able to afford said growth. And this is really, this is the entrepreneur's dilemma. This is what it's all about, guys, in a simple way. Now, when at peace, prepare for war is something that my grandfather, a World War II Master Sergeant, used to talk to me about. And, look, modern war has changed. We have, not only do we have lots of new smart weapons and, new contributors in military that we should be proud of, like our female leaders in the military, but in your financial life, you have to prepare for financial war. And one of those things is making sure that your personal life, you've maximized all opportunities possible. This is not a session about financial literacy, but that's somewhat the name of the game. So I want to make sure that you understand this. When you join and decide to lock up with a partner or a founder, okay, you guys need to be pretty clear about what your financial lives are like. Because later on, when you start to fundraise, it's going to come up. Trust me, I see it all the time. You got to make sure your founders, okay, are very open about your driver's license, your passport, your green card, your social security number, even background checks. Because later on, when you go to either traditional banks, fintech banks, accelerators, all types of other opportunities, you want to make sure all of you are being clear. Did you have a bankruptcy in the last 7 years? Like, what are you really getting in bed with your co-founder? Also, you should just go ahead and get your credit reports. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the credit ratings of entrepreneurs. This is another interesting topic. Resumes, bios. Look, these things are asked for by a lot of VCs because they want to get to know you. I think it's important to also have permanent mailing addresses or PO boxes if you're going to do virtual. You definitely going to want social media accounts. And most importantly, going into starting something, you got to have that certified public accountant, an estate planner, financial planner, labor contract employment attorney. Just have them on tap. You don't have to already start working with them, but you're definitely going to make sure that your founding team, you guys have this in place. This is starting the right foundation going forward. And a lot of you, I mean, here's a good example, right? Like there are 30.7 million small businesses active in the United States. So says the SBA. And on average of those businesses, all of them started with about $30,000 in initial investment. So when they opened their business checking, they got their business signature card, they already had $30,000. You need to think back when you started your business. Did you have $30,000? Because the truth is, if you're going to be successful, you need to start benchmarking with other businesses that are successful. Another interesting point, and I want to say a big shout out to our female entrepreneurs out there. I want you to know an interesting statistic. A study followed by Ashley Bittner that showed up in Harvard Business Review is that only 2.3% of VC funding in the pandemic year 2020 went to female-led startups. That's a problem. Let me tell you something. That means there's a couple things. One, that is not fair. It is not an efficient playing field in the hunt for venture capital money. Whether you're a woman, whether you're a male, whether you're, an underrepresented minority, you need to know VCs, okay? There's definitely certain biases in the system, but this is where maybe you get a co-founder that rounds you out and makes you more competitive, right? So this is something that you can navigate, but this is an interesting statistic. If you want to read more about it, click the link. Next interactive question, just kind of moving along here. So, what do you think is the average credit score for a small business owner? This one's red hot. In a research study, Experian tested 1 million consumers and 2.5 million small business owners. Oh, look at that. We're already getting people voting. All right. What was the most common credit score seen amongst these business owners? 550, 673, 721, 850. I know some of you may have cheated with Google. If you cheat, I'll know. Okay, so let's see what the answer is. Okay, the answer is actually a 721 credit score. Ha! Now, I understand a lot of you are thinking, wait a minute, if you're an entrepreneur, you're actually running your credit all the time, right? You're trying to get working capital, you're doing all these things. Let me be clear. The majority of individuals that go into small business or entrepreneurship, you got to look at what their credit rating is over time. Okay. So the issue is, you're right. The first year or second year, it's definitely even as low as 550. But the credit score immediately starts going up because as the business gets stronger, the business is able to generate and do things and fund itself, which is of benefit to the credit rating of the owners. So this is an interesting one. And if you're one of those founders that, you're cutting bacon off your butt, there's definitely an interesting article here about 4 ways to jumpstart your credit score. And there's lots of things about debt equity and increasing your max credit limit and all these things. But, side note, you can take a look at that. Now, win at peace, prepare for war. I can spin that on your business. Now we're going to start getting into the meat and potatoes of this discussion. Okay. If you start your business and you're preparing for fundraising, there's some specific things that when you get into active fundraising, they're going to come up. Okay. One, you need to develop anyway a 52-week projection of what you think your revenue could be. Now, this is not where you're starting to make super ridiculous numbers. I definitely recommend you're going to want to do something like this is the pessimistic minimum threshold of what could happen in the next 5 years. There's a more reasonable expectation and an aggressive one. But this is going to come up. They're going to want to know what your thoughts are on how your business dynamics will work over 5 years. Now notice I said 52 weeks because you'll see later there's a lot of studies that show most businesses will fail within the first 5 years. If you survive that long, you're kind of like in the clear. So there's a reason why these bankers are asking you for the 52-week projection. Next, your operating agreement, your membership interest, and your pricing model. You need to make sure you put that on paper. No chicken scratch at the restaurant. You need to make sure it's clear how you operate, how you set up or structure the business, what the equity controlling interests with your partners are. And they'll ask, look, if somebody has 30% ownership, they're going to ask who that is, how stable they are, and are they viable or not. It's going to happen. Your pricing model is big because a lot of people can either underprice, overprice, discount, promote like crazy. Those guys can't stand that stuff. Margin dilutive projects they don't like, margin appreciative projects they like. They will invest a lot of times in you improving your margins if you're clear about what they want. Now, to those nonprofit soldier warriors out there, okay? This is not a session about it. I could probably do nonprofit fundraising just by itself, but let me be super clear. Get your Form 990 template ready, get your GuideStar account registered, get your strategic plan, theory of change, and your donor management platform selected, whether that's Bloomerang or Blackbaud. I get it. A lot of you don't know what I'm talking about, but if you're going in a nonprofit, every last one of those things you need to prepare before you ask for $1 of anybody, okay? I just want to be clear. Next is your incorporations. Now, all of you already know, hey, Doug, just go to business filings and get it done, dude, right? That's what everybody's going to say. Guess what? It goes beyond that. You need to decide what state you're registered in, whether you're going to be in Pivot and be an S Corp, which has tax pass-through that's good for the founder, like you need to think about that, or C Corporation, or whether you're going to go 501c3. There's a great article about go ahead and start a business, but don't quit your day job. Very good. It's very good. That's kind of like putting half foot in the water to see if the water's hot. But I definitely want to recommend that you guys start with a foundation. I'm going to continue on this though. I'm going to continue on this because this business you want set up to be correct. You definitely are going to want a business owner's policy or BOP, commercial liability insurance, workers' compensation insurance. You definitely want to consider your physical mailing address because I'm going to talk about later on in grants, where you physically operate can make you eligible for more money. Like if you're in an underserved community, or if you're in a, let's say an inner city community, you can get more resources if your physical mailing address is based there, and you can still live in the burbs or wherever you want to be. It also dictates your business license, which I strongly recommend that you take a look at. You need to think about your domain registration for your website. You need to think about your business checking, and in particular, your business checking, get that business signature card printed because that's going to come up. Payroll checking, right? You want a separate thing if you're going to have employees. You already start to look at electronics processing. So QuickBooks, Bill.com. You want to start looking at how are you going to pay people, like a payroll platform like Gusto, or even whether you as a business or one of your founders could get you registered as a SBE or MBE, meaning small business enterprise. That would be in the state that you're registered in, or a minority business enterprise, like if you're a woman or sometimes out there. So I'm hearing that my audio is not so good. Let's see. It's not audio sometimes. Yeah. Okay, so I will see if I can move up a little closer to my microphone. Okay. Next up, interactive quiz question number 3. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, okay, I'm telling you what I'm going to do here, guys. I'm going to kill my my video, And that might help improve my audio and like how the slides look. Okay, so let's give that a try. So according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, as reported by Fundraise, what percentage of small businesses fail within the first year? Why don't you sound off? A, 10%, B, 20%, C, 50%, D, 90%, E, 99%, or I don't know. Ooh, you guys are thinking about this one. No rapid fire responses on this. Okay, there we go. So C, 50% from Justina. Laura says 50%. There's a D for 90. There's a couple C's, couple D's, couple C's. So everybody thinks C and D. Okay, let's see what happens. The answer is B, 20%. So let's be clear, okay? The SBA would say actually that 49.7%, which is the 50 percentile, fail in half a decade. That's the 5-year mark, okay? I want all of you to understand also, yeah, that's okay, John, that's okay. But I also want you guys to know that that did not change in COVID-19. COVID-19 still demonstrated that at least in the first couple of years, businesses fail, but by the 5th year, about half of them do. And this is one of the number one things I want you to know. You need to fundraise for a 5-year plan, okay? So, you know, and if you want to know why, I did try turning off my video. So it should be better already. Is my audio improved? Yes or no?
Yes, your audio.
Okay, here we go. Okay.
The slide we're seeing right now is the question.
Okay, so any of you, got it. So if any of you are on the line and you're seeing any interconnectivity issues, one way to solve it is to kill your own video, and then that will boost your latency speed and your internet speed for yourself. Okay, so let's continue. But one thing is, there's a great article here on why startups fail. And notice it says, it's not always the horse or the jockey, meaning it's not always the company and it's not always the founder why the business fails. Timing of when your business starts is a contributor. It could be your working capital is an issue and so forth. Okay, now we're getting to the real meat and potatoes of why you're here. The full spectrum of fundraising possibilities. I'm going to stop, plant, and really discuss all the possibilities that are here, okay? One, first of all, there's family and friends funding. Okay, now it's very common that people start with a family and friends funding round. And typically, a lot of people try to gather their resources. Some people have access to trust funds. Sometimes people do debt arrangements, equity investment. Sometimes there's gifts. Sometimes there's buy-sell agreements. My concern with family and friends, it's kind of like, well, it's kind of hard to fire your wife. And it's kind of hard to focus in on family and friends. Let me be clear. I got a question from John there. I'm going to go through all of these high level, and there's only specific ones that will be specific topics that will be discussed for each one. Okay. Next, let's talk traditional commercial banks. Okay. Now, in terms of commercial banks, there's lots of possibilities: personal loan, credit card, or charge cards, or business loan, credit cards, or charge cards. My opinion as a founder, you're going to see some color coding here, right? If it's red, I'm saying I don't like it. If it's green, I'm saying you should do it. In terms of traditional banking, most entrepreneurs don't like it. I'm going to get into that. In terms of private equity lenders, okay, a lot of private equity lenders can give you 36 to 52 week working capital loans. This is short term in nature, and you can get business line of credits from them. There's lines of credits like you could use like HELOCs. There's business lines of credit. There's the SBA, which I'm definitely going to focus a lot on here in a second, that can offer 7A growth loans, 504, microloan, EIDL, PPP. You don't know what it is? Don't worry, I'm going to go through it. There's crowdfunding platforms like Seed Invest, Kickstarter, or Start Engine. There's grants. There's tax returns. There's equity investment and donations. Let's this is now the full spectrum of all things that you should be working. I'm going to dive into a lot of these over the rest of this session. Welcome to the wonderful world of fundraising, people. There's a whole lot of things that you're going to hear about that you didn't know. And it's going to be all about, as founders or CEOs, gathering this information. And a lot of times, one of the lessons I can talk to you is called the Pareto principle. Because the biggest thing a lot of you are going to say is, how do I prioritize my time with the full spectrum of these things? My recommendation, focus more of your effort on, let's say, resources then and options that have 20% of the people that are most likely to give you 80% of the revenue that you're going to need. So just because, there's working capital out there, if it's not going to help you get to 80% of your 5-year plan, that's the areas you need to start. You need to focus on the things that'll give you the biggest chunks. And then, as time goes on, you'll definitely gain other options as the years go by. Also, a great read for you is Engaging with Your Investors by Bill McNabb. That's a great article too. Now let's dive into each one. First of all, traditional and non-traditional banking. First of all, there's a term that a lot of you should talk about. It's called fintech banking, okay? Fintech is very friendly to entrepreneurs. You need to know. Here's a few statistics for you, okay? Ooh, I see a few people still joining us here. Ooh. Okay. According to Founder Jar, there's some interesting statistics we need to talk about. 48% of small businesses have their financial requirements actually satisfied. So a lot of you, when you go to the traditional banks, you should say like they say no to everything, Doug. Well, the truth is actually about half the people are getting resources. So that's something that I'm talking the truth, guys. This is what you need to know. Also, the median small business loan across the board is actually $633,000. Now you need to know, as time goes on, you're going to be able to get that kind of money, but when you start, you won't, okay? 70% of small businesses have some sort of outstanding debt. So even though some will say they only want grants and like free money, if there's no such thing as free money, there's definitely people, the majority of them will get debt as working capital. Also, interest rates on 95% of business term loans are fixed. This is important for you to understand, particularly at a time where interest rates, let's say on home mortgages, have gone up because of the Fed increasing things. But a lot of business loans are actually fixed. 29% of small businesses fail because they run out of capital, and 43% of small businesses applied for a loan in the last year. These are hard statistics you guys need to know. Now, why is it that entrepreneurs don't like traditional banks? Some of it is because high-risk ventures typically come with higher fees and in times higher interest. Even if it's fixed, it can be high. I agree. Visiting a branch takes a lot longer than banking online, and strict collateral requirements, whether you're going to run into situations, they're going to say, hey, I want your house as collateral. I want your life insurance as collateral. There's all kinds of other things. So this is why fintech solutions are interesting. There are 8 fintech providers here, like Ninja Holdings or Bond Street or Biz to Credit. They have a lot less stringent requirements on a lot of loans to small business platforms. And a lot of entrepreneurs in their personal lives, or let's say in their corporate life, won't be familiar with these names, but a lot of them are set up to support you. You can read an article here. It's called Fintech's Game-Changing Opportunities for Small Business. I definitely would recommend, when it comes to traditional loans or lending, you need to educate yourself on the opportunities from fintech. Next, let's dive a little bit deeper into the SBA. So the Small Business Association, which some of you I saw earlier, already has some interesting loan opportunities for you. And let's talk through some of them. So the 7A growth loan is a term loan that gives to qualified businesses. It can be up to 5 million, but what you should know is most startups, the minimum cap has been set at 350,000. It used to be 250,000 about a year and a half ago. This loan can be used for refinancing, equipment. It's pretty open on how you can use the funds. One thing I don't like about 7A growth loan, even though it's a government loan and it's actually, it's basically a loan from a provider bank, but it's backed by the SBA. It's actually has variable interest. So one thing you should know about the 7A growth loan, I mean, it's possible you can get it fixed, but typically unlikely. The problem is in these times where the Fed is increasing interest rate, the cost of capital for 7A growth loan is kind of a moving target, which that's why I don't like it as much at this point in time. The 504 loan's another interesting, it's a long-term loan. It is fixed rate. It's typically for capital equipment purchases. So if you're doing like new facility or farming or other types of equipment, this is where a microloan is interesting. Loan sizes are up to about $50,000 for microloans. And, on average, though, most of the loans are smaller, like $13,000. So 504 loans, depending on if you're an ag tech, or let's say like a service business in painting or plumbing or something like this, this is how you can actually get your equipment compensated. The EIDL, the EIDL, it's kind of COVID was a special period. It was painful from a standpoint of the lockdown and operating, having open business, but there actually was opportunities for fundraising that I don't know that all entrepreneurs participated in. The EIDL, or the Emergency Incentive Disaster Loan, was a way that you can get essentially an open loan. The repayment terms, it actually gave you some time before you actually had to pay it. And you could even increase your loan request. Unfortunately, the SBA has closed the EIDL, but there is discussion, I think it's worth a lot of you knowing, about a long-term potential forgiveness or other types of incentives related to the EIDL. So you definitely want to be watching the news on that one. Now, the PPP, one of the discussion questions earlier, whether that was round one or round two. Actually, there's still some PPP providers that are still out there. So round one, round two, essentially, as I mentioned, it gives you about 2 to 2.5 months of employment compensation for either the founder, the owner, or any of the employees. And it's actually most of the first and second draws have been forgiven. I think it's something like greater than 90% of those loans are forgiven. So if you haven't taken PPP and you consider yourself an employee, even just the founder, you want to explore whether this is still an option available to you. I'm going to stop. There's a question. There's a good one from my friend Laura Good. It says, why get a 7A loan instead of a traditional bank loan? All right. This is a really good question. So let me talk a little bit about this. Okay. One, a traditional bank loan typically is meant for businesses that are at around their 5th year of operating. Okay, so let's say, or it's going to be secured or backed with collateral, which most likely will tie back to the mortgage or 401k or resources of the founder. A 7A growth loan backed by the SBA, let me say this, typically is going to have more flexibility on how the loan is secured. Like they will allow you to use a life insurance policy instead of your mortgage or instead of your retirement. Also, the 7A growth loan, to be clear, it's going to show up on the credit rating of the company, not that of the founder or the personal person. I think this is critical for you to know because some of the founders will have multiple businesses. Like for me, I have 3. I only mentioned 3 steps forward, but there's 2 other mystery organizations tied to Doug Younger. So I think that, in my opinion, when you're raising funds, you really want to try to start first for working capital if the business can be the source of funding the loans. So 7A growth loan, you definitely would want to explore before going to a traditional bank loan. But then simultaneously later on, as you operate and your revenue gets higher, even the business will be able to get traditional bank loans. I really appreciate that question. Here's a great article, which I think a lot of you can relate to. One of the guests earlier was saying they're actually multitasking at work while they're on this session. There's an article from Nala Davies about how to get your side hustle off the ground. And this is where it's very interesting, where you're going to, in your first or second year of operating, it's going to be about balancing how you get your working capital, whether that's cutting bacon off the butt of the founder, or whether you're actually having the business actually be able to access funds itself. And it is quite the balancing act, I would say. Okay. Next one is grants, which is super mega popular. And my comment on grants, my humorous one is you lottery without a lottery ticket. So apply for a grant today. Let me say this, the win-loss rate on grants, like you gotta apply to grants and you gotta get good at it. But the truth is, don't depend on it. Just assume that if it happens, great. And I saw somebody made a comment about the California Relief Grant, so I'm going to talk a little bit about this. One of the advantages of grants that a lot of people don't know, there's over 900 federal grants worth about $721 billion. And I love it. Diana made a grants laugh out loud. Look, she's right. Of any of us that are experienced, it's like, wow, like grants, you work so hard and then your hit rate is bad. But when you get it, hey, you're going to be very excited about it, like winning the lottery. So what you should know also, there are 86,000 foundations in the USA. So let me be clear. That's 900 federal grant programs that give a certain amount of money. But then there's also private foundations that give said sums of money. And it's a lot of money, people. So there's a lot of money in grants, but the problem that I have with it is that your hit rate will be extremely low. So you just, and the application processing time, it's going to take some due diligence. I also would say a couple things in recommendation to you if you're thinking about grants, which you should. You need to build a grant calendar by month with alerts for deadlines and awards. And the reason that I mention this is because it's so easy that there's actually a grant season. There's certain times a year where grants are open for applications, as well as, different deadlines and alerts you need to be aware of. You need to write what's called a business narrative. That is not to be confused with your business plan. Your business narrative should be written in a form of why somebody that awards grants should consider your business versus others. You need to create a grant application master template. If you've ever worked in big business like I am, it's kind of like writing a government tender. You need to have all your information that most grants need in one place, because a lot of times, a lot of grant applications are similar and in terms of their requirements. You need to learn the process workflow of grants.gov. So if you want that grant money, oh man, you need to definitely get used to that one. And then if you win a grant, let me be clear, promote it like crazy. Winning grants is definitely good visibility and good credibility. Okay, and notice I already knew, for example, each of the state municipalities and city municipalities and county municipalities have grants as well, such as the California Relief Grant. Well, there's a lot of grants that benefit our veterans, our minorities, and our women. You need to stay informed. That's my biggest comment. And there are some really interesting discussions in the chat, whoever's on there. And I agree, opengrants.io is a Sacramento regional startup. I actually met the founder a couple times through Growth Factory. You definitely should consider there's interesting tools that are out there in terms of grants. There's also different grant databases that you can get access to if you're an education provider and other things. So I definitely recommend to all of you, grants is something you need to do. It's got to be part of your business, but do not exclusively depend upon grants. And yeah, there's a great point that investors are impressed with grants that are won. I really want to emphasize, if you win grants, even non-monetary grants, like one of the good examples, my company, we won Comcast Rise, which actually gave us 90 days of TV airtime. We actually were able to get a TV commercial about my company on there. And there's only so many winners of things like this. So I definitely recommend all of you to explore grants. And actually, I also want to recommend that Startup Sack can help you with grants. and your SBDC or SBA representative can help you with local grants in the area. Okay, moving along, I want to poll the temperature in the room with some of you guys. So interactive polling question number 4. Which of the following fundraising methods are you most confident about given your own startup small business capabilities? A, fintech, B, SBA loans, C, grants, D, venture capital, E, angels, F, private equity, G, friends and family, and H, I don't know. And just so you guys know, I will be talking about venture capital, angels, private equity coming up. But sound off in the chat. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. I'm doing the alphabet here. Okay, there we go. Richard fired off venture cap. All right, very good, Richard. He's confident. Oh, Kevin already figured out, like, look, I'm not going to focus on one of them. I'm going after all of them. Okay, I, other sponsorships and service contracts. Look at Laura. There's C, because I'm a grant writer. Oh, Justina, there we go. Hey, you know, the grant writers. I will say this, guys, if you're not good at a particular thing, go get a professional. So there you go. You guys should talk to Justina. Any other people or any other takers on which form of fundraising will help them achieve 80% of their need? Any others? That's all I'm going to get. Oh, A and F. Okay, so we got a couple different options out there. Okay, so a couple things that you guys should know. 2020, surprisingly, had 130 billion in venture investment. So a couple things you guys need to know. I see a couple E's there. Look at that. There's a couple E's that came in. I think you guys need to know that venture investment typically expects about a 25% return on investment. So says the National Bureau of Economic Research. That's something now we're going to start breaking into how you need to be thinking about which of these venture capital areas you want to explore. It means for every dollar that VC, and they're going to want 25 cents in return. And that's where you got to think a little bit about what your growth multiples as a business is. Also, you should know, the National Venture Capital Association says that 25 to 30% of venture-backed businesses fail. So, you know, my comment to you, I've heard this many times. Many founders will say, everything will be all right after I close this round. It's absolutely unequivocally false. About a third of businesses that even get to Series A, Series B that are venture-backed are still going to fail. So that's something that you definitely still want to stay on the prowl for lots of different opportunities. Another great article, Harvard Business Review, that entrepreneurs and the truth, they often bend it, but don't demonize them. The problem is systemic. I think that this is important for a lot of you to know that, you know, venture or equity dilutive funds is not the panacea, and it's not, you know, it's not always what it may seem to be. And I agree, Laura brought up a great point that Hollywood makes VC seem like vultures and bad people. And look, I'm not saying they are. It's just, I think it's understanding your business, what your growth multiples are, and if you can meet the expectations of the venture community. Let's dive into some of that. Okay. The art of the pitch, and that's what venture investment is going to be all about. These investors want to be taken for a ride. Now, if you're new to venture investment, like, and this is obvious for some of you, but for some of you, this may be new. Okay, there's typically 4 stages of company growth. Now, there may be multiple rounds, like I've seen people do multiple seed rounds, but let's just break it down. Seed money typically can be within $100,000 and $250,000. Series A, which can be between $2 and $15 million. Series B, which is $7 million to $20 million. Series C, which is $100 million and beyond. Okay, let's talk a little bit about this. So if you're going to pitch to an influential investor, which all VC investors are pretty high profile, and I would say don't rush your first encounter with a VC, because you might be talking to the right person and you just might not be ready yet. But here's just some common rules of thumb from a great article called 9 Guarantees Reasons that your VC pitch could fail. Not researching the VC that you're pitching is a problem. Not customizing your pitch for each of the VCs that you got to have to think about. being too stubborn to stop. There's no doubt about it. I've been in VC pitches where in 2 minutes, they're going to stop you. And then, the founder keeps plugging away, but the VC has heard all they want to hear. Being defensive is not good. Being boring is definitely not good. Projecting the wrong image, not reporting on real progress and being clear about that. Doing formal pitches. You want to be adaptable and not addressing deficiencies. I'm going to talk a little bit about this. There are over 1,000 active venture capital firms in the United States. Networking with VCs is, let's just say this, the more and more you network with this world, I think you will definitely eventually start getting known by VCs. This is one of my primary comments to you, is that you want to go to the VC pool when you're ready. If you think you can meet their expectations, if you're clear on your 52-week projections, if you've had enough rewards or grants or traction, that's the time you want to go to the VCs. Don't go too early, because then you may run into the problem that they may say no, and then later on they would have said yes. This is part of the reason I wanted you to kind of understand a lot of comprehensive concepts. Also, VCs tend to be specific about industries. So there's some VCs that will favor SaaS companies. Some are just in the biotech industry. Also, these sectors that I listed are VC intensive. There's lots of VC houses that do software, biotech, industrial, or med device. But then you might be in an industry that's totally unrelated to that, which means you need to find social impact people, which is really more angels and other types of investment things. There's also some really great feedback in the chat again. I love the discussion going on here. So the comment is, if they only want 20%, 25% ROI, then they're not really vultures. And I agree with that point. I completely agree with that point. There are people that, look, I can tell you private equity is going to demand way more ridiculous terms. So VCs actually can be good for business. I think it's more of a timing issue. You want to get to them at a good time frame, okay? Also, I agree that number 4 is a big issue. That this is good, Laura, that makes VCs think that you aren't coachable. So this is really clear. Like, you don't want to walk into a VC pretending to know everything, because they know that you don't know everything. In fact, a really good VC is going to bring complementary backup options for you as you go through fundraising. Okay. Now let's talk a little bit about the blue ocean for venture capital. And I've got some data that I want to share with you. Okay. So some of you may be thinking, like, what is a highly desirable venture capital group? Like, what am I looking for? Okay, here's just a few rules of thumbs. Okay, you want VCs that are willing to invest more than money. Means they're not just looking at their 25% investment. They're going to say, I'm going to put their own time, skill, and manpower in making you successful. Also, they're going to have strong links to companies that will develop your business. The idea is, you might get a VC that can give you your first strategic partnership or pilot, because they're tied to other investments that's correlated with you. Also, you want the VC to exhibit an interest in developing your business and the investment appeal. You also currently, and you're going to want investments that complement your business, like if your business complements their portfolio. Now, let's talk about certain investors, okay? Techstars is a great one in Boulder, Colorado that I've worked with that has 3,600 investments. And think of this as interesting. They have that many investments, but they've had 380 exits. So, on the point of VCs not being vultures, they also understand that even though they make a lot of investments, there's a high failure rate. And they also understand that the biggest wins offset all losses. So you have to understand, like, you're not trying to, you want to pitch to as many VCs when you're ready as you can, because failure is also a name of the game, right? It's not assumed. You're not going to be like a 100% win rate. 500 global, or I think it's actually 500 startups. I don't know why that's written there, but that's in SF, and they have over 2,854 investments. Notice for 340 exits. You're going to see some commonality in proportions on the number of investments and the number of exits. You have SOSV in Princeton. There's a lot of biotech and pharmaceutical there. 2004 investments for 60 exits. New Enterprise Associates in Menlo Park, 2,000 investments. ASOL, Palo Alto, California, 1,800 investments. Sequoia Capital in Menlo Park, California, 1,700 investments. And it's on and on and on. Maybe I have to make a comment on this. Many of you are in a commutable zone to 8 out of the top 10 venture capital firms in the world. So to a lot of my Sacramento enthusiasts out there, like, trust me, I think, look, I'm as proud, Sacramento proud as anybody else. I think it's awesome what's happening in Sacramento and all the startups there. But best believe that you have an advantage being the backyard of these VC houses. And many of these VC houses, like Plug and Play, they have different meetups and networking sessions. There's ways to get networked into them. And if this, this presentation doesn't help you a little bit in understanding how to access VCs, another great article is, how venture capitalists make decisions, an inside look at an opaque world, because it's not a perfect science. I want to be clear about that. It's definitely not. And I think that for a lot of you, VC it's definitely going to be how you scale, but it's definitely not the start of the journey. So I definitely want you guys to think about that. And now let's talk about if VCs aren't the start of the journey, what should be? And I think Laura was already leading to that in the chat, talking about angels. Okay, but we're going to get to that next. I'm going to first talk about private equity, because I think many of you will look at VC and private equity and say, what's the difference, Doug? Okay, first of all, private equity describes an investment partnership. Okay, it's an individual that represents funds, and a lot of times they're institutional or accredited investors. They're not the same as a VC in that, in my opinion, VCs understand failure is the name of the game. For a lot of the private equity people, it's going to be certain KPI and financial measures that they're going for. They want their fund to perform in a certain way. They're going to want to see, in my opinion, a lot of private equity is going to want, after you start collecting revenue, they're going to want to have return on revenue, almost kind of like a bond. Like, they're going to want cash flow to start coming their way. But you can't underestimate one thing about private equity. $216 billion of private equity funds go out to small business. So this is a huge pool of different things. And there's, for example, there's 13,000 private equity hedge funds and investment vehicles. So it's about positioning your startup as, I can help deliver growth to a fund or to some type of estate fund or something like this. But this is really something after you're up and running and you're starting collecting revenue. The type of private equity investors that are out there, some of them are institutional. There's insurance companies that do private equity investment. University endowments do private equity investment. Pension funds have fund managers that, a certain percentage of the pension, they're going to say, we want to invest in startups. And if you end up in a representative fund, okay, that's another source of income for you. Also, private equity investment strategies. I want to talk about it. Like, if you've ever gotten in front of a private equity fund or like a smaller fund, a lot of times they have different behavior patterns. Okay, so some are passive and active, like they suddenly spur into action and then they cool off. Some of them have growth investing strategies. Some of them have value. They're like, they want to buy and hold. Some of them are going to want like on-demand income. Some of them want just dividends that are kicked out. So, there's indexes. Sometimes they want to fit in some type of indexing. So I really think that private equity is something that you really want to not ignore, understand, read about, but it's really for later on as you get rolling. Okay. All right, next one, which I do recommend, is angels. And I did see there's lots of people that join the session as we're rolling here. So, hey, you guys make me feel like a popular guy. I'm sorry that I can't smile and show you my face, but I'm trying to keep the internet latency speed good for everybody. So yeah, thank you. Thank you for joining, June. Thank you. Okay, so now let's keep it rolling here. So angel investors, and I kind of have this photo of Cupid here, because this is a lot like, dating. You need a little help from the God of love here. So angel investors are individuals who provide capital, and they want either in exchange a convertible debt or ownership equity. And, the SBA actually has done some statistics on this, that about $330,000 is an average angel investor's commitment to an opportunity. So, that initial out the gate, that could really be a source of funds for you. And my comment about angels, like, they're a lot friendlier people than private equity or VC. Like, a lot of times angels will invest on causes or invest in people they believe in. This is where your founder's team and your management team, and even like what schools they went to. Like, I've seen a lot of alumni investment groups that behave as angels because they're gonna back their alumni out there. So I definitely recommend angels. I think you need to spend a lot of time on this up front. So the Angel List social networking, I don't know if you're on Angel List, people, but there's a social network called Angel List. You gotta join it. Also, an Angel Capital Association, the ACA, they have 14,000 investors, and they have different conferences and chapters in different cities. Guaranteed, the San Francisco chapter is one of the largest angel communities, and even Sacramento has different angel communities. There's Angel Forum, there's Angel Investment Network, and and look, Laura, very astute, already is mentioning that the Sacramento Angels, the SAC Angels is local, and they are a great source of local angel investments, but they actually collaborate with other ACAs, which means there could be some angels somewhere else that for whatever reason you're attacking a cause they really believe in. Angels also are particularly interested in certain industries and sectors and social impact causes. So believe that, like, if you're affecting energy or climate change, or you're doing certain things, there's certain angels that just believe in it. And I could tell you, angels do not come with the same expectation of 30%. In fact, I'd even comment that angels' hit and loss rate is even worse than VCs, but they're kind of okay with that because in a lot of ways, they're trying to make a world a better place. Isn't that what we all are supposed to be doing? I really find angels and founders make good teams. This is one of my strongest recommendations in this entire session. You need to get an angel on your side. Even if they're not an investor, they can help you. Here's a good example. My angel, actually, he didn't invest in my company, but his name was Chen Feng. And Chen is one of the founders of Creative Destruction Labs, which is CDL, which is an accelerator. And Chen brought me, probably in my first year of operating, like 5 different clients. So it's not that he invested directly in me, because I took no investment. I bootstrapped my business. I own all of it. But Chen knew that he wouldn't let me fail. And that's my comment. You all need an angel on your shoulder. Pun completely intended. Okay, so there's also some other great comments on angels in the chat from Laura, and I definitely think this is an area that you should look at. And there's a great article from what angel investors value most when choosing what to fund. I think that you want to take a look at in the hyperlinks of this slide. Okay, now I did the whole Chen Feng Creative Lab reference there. So accelerators. All right, I'm not going to mess around with this, guys. Like, I think accelerators are also equally as important as an angel. Okay, now an accelerator is a short-term growth program that promotes, in many cases, instead of a few years, you're gonna go through a time-intensive program, almost like a boot camp, to improve your market readiness, to get your business planning nailed down. There are 170 accelerator programs in the United States. There's also international ones that I've involved in India and other typically technology intensive economies. Germany has accelerators, Japan has accelerators. Some of the more popular ones that I recommend are names that many of you have heard. So CDL, Growth Factory, which is, somebody I admire greatly, Monique Brown. Like, Growth Factory is a very local Sacramento. It's in the backyard. It's something that You join a cohort, guys. Like you go in there and it's almost like graduating in a class, like 500 startups. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of Y Combinators, or, founders or entrepreneurs that were Y Combinator, Plug and Play, Alchemist, and Founders Factory. Look, my comment on accelerators is it's not just going through the program that's useful. It's also when you can come out and say that I am a CDL company, it actually kind of puts your name on the map. Now, that's worth more than money, by the way. But some of these programs actually, after you become a graduate or when you go through the process, you're also able to get investment dollar. Like there are some angels and VCs that hang out and help fund accelerators that you're now interested in. A good example of CDL, they make you go through 7 rounds of pitching, and you pitch to the different investors that support CDL. By the time you go to the 7th round, you've probably accumulated enough investors and willingness to even pull off a Series A. A couple of my clients have done this. So I definitely think that, if you're navigating the world of angels well, you're navigating the world of investors or VCs, or if you're struggling with that, accelerators are a great way that you can get in and talk with a lot of different VCs or angels and do it in a credible way by becoming part of the inner club. There's some great chat commentary about Growth Factory. I definitely think for a lot of you that are early stage startups, they take a couple different cohorts. I think that you definitely want to look. Yeah, I think there's a comment about, did anyone attend a Bay Area accelerator? Okay, let me say something, guys. Doug Younger, your buddy here, I've been in Bay Area a little while. So Plug and Play, a lot of the accelerators that are in Bay Area, look, the first initial investment in Facebook was made by a man in Sacramento that maybe some of you have met. They put $500,000 in, and now it's worth $6 billion. So that could happen to you. I definitely recommend going for an accelerator. And I see that point. So Mehdi, hey man, I want to talk to you. I acknowledge that you will apply to accelerators and your win-loss rate will not be perfect. Do not put your head down. My comment would be definitely use it as a learning opportunity. I mean, for a lot of you that go through accelerators, I definitely recommend if you get rejected, email them for feedback as to reasons why, because you could turn around and go into another group and then you definitely might get in there. And I kind of feel it's kind of like, you guys don't know, I've been married for 20 years and, my wife is my sweetheart and all I had to do was get it right once, right? And that's kind of how accelerators are. Like, it's kind of like you're going out, like this is a lot like dating, you got to get out there. Don't be afraid of failure. And, eventually you're going to get successful. So I definitely think that accelerators and angels is, the way to go. Okay, I'm going to keep moving here, guys. Crowdfunding. Oh boy. I already know. I should probably have polled how many you really want to do a crowdfunding. Okay, so the modern world has brought change. Okay, social networks, and to be honest with you, there are people breaking the ice where VC, private equity, angels, accelerators are even viewed as a traditional form of a way to capitalize your business. And there are all new ways to do it. And I can tell you, man, I'm doing, as a marketing agency, I'm supporting a lot of different stuff. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this, okay? So just so you guys, I balance it correctly. When I'm talking about crowdfunding, I'm talking about raising large sums of money in small batches across the internet, across a large number of people. And by this, I mean, this could be, for example, like actual equity, like they're investing to own a certain part of the business. Sometimes they're just saying, hey, I really want to just participate. Like I'm a fan. I want to put money in this person's hands. There's some of that. There's, people that are just enthusiasts and they want to see a new video game made and they're going to say, I'll give money for free to you for a long time. Just go. Okay, so there's lots of pockets. I'm going to talk about all of these. Okay, so what you should know, Fundera did some research, and there's $17.2 billion in crowdfunding in the United States. So if you think that crowdfunding is a little weird or like a little like it's for like the super young elite, no, it's not. This is actually a viable way to raise funds, but it can lead to migraine headaches. And, I'm going to talk about that. So first of all, Kickstarter. Kickstarter has over 500,000 campaigns ran and has raised $5 billion in pledges. Kickstarter is an interesting one because let me comment. Kickstarter requires you to have a prototype. So if you're making a product or a widget, you got to understand that if you go on Kickstarter, you got to have like some type of prototype. You can't just pitch a business idea or business concept on it. Also, Kickstarters are pretty visible. Now, if you win and succeed, it kind of fuels itself. So let's say you put something on Kickstarter, you get $10,000 in a certain amount of time. Suddenly you go up on a board and then everybody, it's like a leadership board and everybody else starts jumping in. Boom, you probably made $1 million. It's like crazy, right? Now, my only comment about Kickstarter, you gotta prepare for the marketing campaign needed to do well. Means you're gonna definitely need to have swag, merchandise, stuff to encourage the Kickstarter community to keep fueling what you're trying to do. So this requires some investment up front. You're gonna need some good photography, some good videos, like it's marketing intensive, okay? Next one, Indiegogo. It's another interesting one. 800,000 projects funded and 40 million in financing. Indiegogo is interesting because actually Indiegogo does not have the requirement of having a prototype. So if, Indiegogo, people do like social impact causes, like all types of campaigns that I think Indiegogo is an interesting one. And let me say this, when you fail and run an Indiegogo failure, it's like not as bad. Like you didn't like blow your reputation or, in the same way that you ran a Kickstarter and somebody's like, you ran a Kickstarter and you didn't win, right? So that's something to consider. Now let's talk GoFundMe. GoFundMe has over 70 million donors and they've raised $5 billion, making it probably the bar none largest crowdfunding campaign in the world. So GoFundMe is huge. I would say if you have potential international traction to your startup, you got to consider GoFundMe. Patreon. All right. Patreon patrons are an interesting bunch. There's 6 million patrons. Let me tell you what they do. They don't even require equity. A lot of times they'll commit, okay, I like this guy, so I'll put $100 a month to back this person because I believe in what they do. It's typically for content creators and artists, but there are entrepreneurs that, let's say they start blogging or video blogging about their experience, and they get people that just say, you know what? I'm going to take my paycheck and I'm going to give you a little bit every month. So this is another one that's interesting. Now the last two, Seed Invest and Start Engine. Okay, so these are platforms for startups that, here's a good example. Seed Invest is going to take a certain amount of their own investors and guarantee like a certain amount of money. It could be anywhere from 500,000 to 1.5 million in a round, okay? Maybe not enough for a Series A, but definitely for a seed round. But if you do well, you can oversubscribe on the platform and go further. So Seed Invest has done over 600,000 investors and has generated 350 million in startups. This is the one that my group, we worked with on a client that we raised 5.8 million. It can be done. Here's my only comment. If you go into a Seed Invest or Start Engine, you should know if you fail, 100% the VCs and angels will count it against you. They'll say, hey, if you couldn't even get past what you're supposed to, you definitely want to look at, what your long-term potential is. And that's one comment I have about this platform. And actually, John just mentioned that Seed Invest is being bought by Start Engine. So actually, these two concepts are merging, and I'm not surprised by that. Like, is the world big enough for two platforms like that? No, I actually think that one makes sense. But nonetheless, I think one consequence all of you need to think about is if you go down in a crowdfunding, you are now exposed to the court of public opinion. And whether you succeed or fail, it can mean something. You have to remember the other ones that I talked about, which is, let's say, private equity or VCs or angels or accelerators. That's kind of like private, like whether you do well or not, whether you get a lot of money or not, sure, you might show up in a TechCrunch report, but it's not like the court of public opinion. So crowdfunding is something that I think you should do. It's highly subjective why and where, and it's something you got to think about. There's a great article from Philip Cornelius. Crowdfunding can deliver more than just money, in which I would say it can bring positive public sentiment or negative public sentiment. So if you want to talk offline, trust me, like I really mean, like it gave me a migraine headache supporting a crowdfunding campaign. It is tough. It is grueling. It is not free money. And it even comes with expectation, but it is a possibility in the wonderful blue ocean of fundraising. Okay. Now, I know I only have 10 minutes left, and it's just not the same if I don't get some fun interactive gaming from you before I go into my closing thoughts here. Let's go through a couple interesting things. So now, interactive polling question number 5. This is the last interactive polling question. Oh no, Doug. Okay, general rule is that founders lose equity and controlling interest by about 10 to 20% per seed round. I bet you guys didn't know that. And 20% typically per round going forward. So what that means is if you go through 4 or 5 rounds real fast, your majority controlling interest is like wiped out. Okay, so here's a question for some of you that are startups. How much equity are you or your founders willing to give up to achieve your entrepreneurial dreams? I want you to sound off, guys. A, 20%, B, 30%, C, 50%, D, 65%, E, whatever it takes. I'm going all the way and it doesn't matter, or F, I don't know. And you know what? I want to see what you guys are doing here. So here, let me see here. So John, look at that. My fellow case alone is B, 30%. He's gotta control majority interest. Okay. And we have Laura saying F, I don't know. She knows. She doesn't want to reveal. Then we have Meredith that says she only wants to give up 20%. You guys are shrewd operators, man. You don't want to give up equity to win. There's B, Richard, B. Then we have E. Okay, so there's Brian. It says E for equity, 49% for control. And then I'm a nonprofit. I have no equity to sell. And then E. Okay, I want to tell you guys something. I want to talk about this. Okay, this one, look, I knew it. I would get you guys all riled up. I knew it. Okay. This is a more important question than all of you think, because this is really about how far are you willing to go to succeed and to win. Now, I get it. We're all business people here. And we're always going to say, you know what, Doug, as long as I got 51% controlling interest. But see, I want to talk a little more sensitively about things, right? Like, surprisingly, maintaining a controlling interest, it's kind of like this. Okay. Yeah, Laura knows I'm getting intimate, right? I'm getting intimate. Like, Laura wants to see the passion. Like, look, because I use my hands. You guys got to understand, are you out to navigate the valley of death or not? Are you out to make the world a better place, or are you not? You see, not all of us are going to be rich. Not all of us are going to be Elon Musk. And not all of us are going to go and do this and make tons of money. But the principal challenge of a founder is, are you here to make the world a better place or not? So depending on your situation, look, none of you are wrong. None of you are wrong. I'm going to tell you that. But I can tell you, in your mentality, I would recommend you need to start thinking more like E, whatever it takes, because that's what it's going to take to win. Like, look, if it were easy to be an entrepreneur and a founder, everybody would do it. And there's a high failure rate. And trust me, founders self-destruct. I even have an article about that. Like founders self-destruct under pressure. But this question is a theoretical one that I hope you need to think about. And I want to be clear. Your founders may not agree with you on this. And I can tell you one of the number one things I see in my business, founders will all answer differently. One of them will say, no, I'm not giving up 20%. Another will say, I'll give it all. And this is the reasons they fight. This is when you start to see bipolar management and leadership challenges. I hope you guys even enjoyed. Look at the spread of answers here. There's no consistency on this one. No consistency of anybody in this room. It's all over the place. Don't you think that your co-founder might have a different answer than you? And you want to have that conversation before you start fundraising, okay? Oh, wait, hold on. It says, lose voting control and you lose your guarantee of making the world a better place. Yeah, look at Brian there. Okay, listen, if you lose voting control and they take over your company and buy you out and your company goes along, it makes the world a better place. Didn't you still win as a founder? You could say, yeah, but Doug, they squeezed me for all my money. Yeah, Doug, no, that's not right. Let me tell you something. Again, you have to take the right perspective at the beginning, why you started this. And I can tell you, look, you guys don't know this. Have a lot of you seen Rotten Tomatoes? Do you guys use movies? You use Rotten Tomatoes? So I actually met the Rotten Tomato founder. And let me tell you something. He went out there and won, in my view. But he only made enough money to pay off his initial investors. That's it. Now, don't get me wrong. He's getting crazy speaking engagements for doing what he did. Like, he makes money, but it wasn't necessarily financially a smash hit for him as a founder. But I'm here to tell you, bad movies can be found with Rotten Tomatoes, you know? And he changed the world. He changed the navigation. Like, now a lot of companies completely base their whole movie's rollout strategy on getting Rotten Tomato scores. Trust me, that founder is a winner. And I leave that, that's something to think about. And, now we have 3 minutes, but I have another really interesting game. I want to really mess with you guys now. All right, so hold on. Okay, interactive game. This is the final interactive game. We're all going to play a game. You actually get to play the role, this is a role play, of a private equity investor. So a said private equity investor, which is you, is given a unique opportunity to invest in a cutting edge electric vehicle technology in a private investor round. So keep in mind, these are publicly traded companies, but meaning you get to participate in some private stock, okay? Okay, so you can purchase an EV just for you, or you can invest in the project. You can allocate $1 million in convertible debt or equity in 2 of these top EV companies. And I chose them deliberately. Tesla, for all the wackiness of their founder, but it represents modern design, technology, approach, manufacturing, digital automation, everything. In Ford, the epitome of American automotive vehicles, right? Let's talk about this one. As a private equity investor or enthusiast, which opportunity would you invest or purchase? A, would you invest $1 million in the Tesla Cybertruck project? B, would you invest in the $1 million Ford F-150 Lightning? C, would you not invest in the projects, not caring about making money, but you would just say, I'm going to buy it myself because I think the Cybertruck has 500 miles per charge. It's stainless steel, it's indestructible. I love everything about it. Or I hate Elon Musk and say, do not invest. And then you purchase the Ford Lightning because you like trucks and you want to do other things. Would you E, do nothing, or F, that you don't know? Sound off in the chat. I want to see this private equity investment strategy. What are you going to do? Okay, here we go. Look, I knew there would be passion on this one. So Laura said Ford. I think Tesla was the trailblazer, but Ford and other auto managers are going to see, let's see, B is my vote if I had money, and Elon annoys me. Hey, by the way, to be a fast follower is Laura's point. Hey, you might be the first, but it doesn't mean that somebody else is going to come eat your lunch, okay? So June said, I'm buying that Cybertruck. Hey, June, let's get some red louvers and cut our hair as mohawks and go for that Cybertruck. I'm with you. Then you had B. Okay. Oh, look, there's some Ford Lightning lovers out there. Look. Okay. Henry. Oh, John got all like controversial. So Henry Ford was a Nazi supporter, which is actually it's being proven that Ford invested them. I hear you there. And Elon Musk is a neo. Look, John has jokes, but that, John, that's serious stuff, like maybe we shouldn't joke. And it says you buy BMW. We have some B's. We have, look, Ford Lightning won out. Hey, that's very interesting. I think the comment I have here, guys, in hindsight is all of us as, if you play the role of private equity, what you learn here, this is the job that the VCs and the private equities have to do with you. When you go in front of them, they're going to have their own rational, emotional, and economic driving decisions as to why they do what they do. And if you noticed in this one, even Elon's behavior rubbed Laura the wrong way, which means a founder's behavior or your behavior as a CEO may rub them the wrong way. So if I'm going to wrap this one up, because I know everybody has to go to work. Conclusion here. No worries, Justine, I'll see you. Working capital is a necessary evil of any startup. It can make or break you. Building wealth combines multifaceted skills in fundraising, revenue generation, cost management, and tax. Prepare yourself for fundraising. Prepare your organization for fundraising. Explore all fundraising possibilities. Agree with your founders on how much equity and working capital you can tolerate. And lastly, define for yourself what success looks like. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. This action romp is for you. If you want to continue this dialogue, you can contact us at douglasjounger@3steps4ward.com. You can become a client of 3 Steps Forward at www.3stepsforward.com, and you can join our podcast, which I hope you want to talk about this journey you're on, at twistoffatepodcast.com. Did you guys enjoy this one? I don't know. Did I miss my target? Is it not informative? Oh, actually, looks like I got some positive comments there. Let's see. Look at this. The Tesla thing messes a lot of people up. Let's see. Yeah. Okay, so there's a few questions they have here. So I know if you have to go to work and you don't want to hang out with dear old Doug, you're welcome to drop. I won't take it personally. But I can stick around for another 15 minutes. Laura, am I going to time out? Can I take questions? I think there's some interesting ones here.
I'm cool with that. So yes, you can take questions, but those who need to leave right at 1, feel free to do so. And I will share, I will email you a link to the slide presentation.
Okay, fantastic. All right. Hey, Mehdi gave me a comment. He said, amazing talk. Thanks. So, hey, okay, I got one supporter, right? I got one person that likes me. Okay, so here we go. So we've got a question. The F-150 Tesla thing really messed you guys up. I can see that there's a lot of passion here. Okay, June asked the question. What's the most important reason to raise money with a beta? So I think, June, are you still there or you had to go?
I'm right here.
Okay, June, wait, I want you to clarify for me real fast. What do you mean by a beta? I want to make sure that I baseline what you're, because I'm pretty sure I understand what you mean. What do you mean by beta?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say I'm non-technical and I'm non-business. So by beta, I mean that we have a website. I've done customer interviews where it works. The functionality works. We're now implementing a better landing page design. Yep. And we're turning it loose.
Okay,
we're going to turn it loose.
June, let me talk about this one. Okay. I think it's really important after a beta, or what we call in the trade, collecting voice of customer, like in the real world. Let me tell you why. When you do a beta or pilot, it's one of the times that investors will be forgiving, because that beta is about learning how your platform performs and what's missing. Okay, so I strongly recommend post-beta to first of all do a gap analysis. This means this is all the behaviors we observed. This is the good, the bad, the ugly. And in this gap, if we had X, Y, and Z, this beta would have been better. Then you immediately turn to investors of all these different grades and say, I had a beta. I can do better and achieve my 52-week projection if I had X, Y, and Z. And if your gap analysis ties to investment dollar you're asking for, you're more likely to get forgiven for bad things that later on, let's say if it's 2 or 3 years after you started, they're going to say, okay, show me your 1 million subscribers. And, you know, it's understood after you do a beta test that you're not going to have 1 million subscribers. So yeah, I do think you want to take your results, you want to take what you learned, and you want to put it in the format of a gap analysis and an ask, like an actual pitch ask. I need this much money to go to the next level. And now they're going to, some will help you. Some will say they're not excited about the growth fundamentals. And then you just say, I don't want to work with you. And then you move on. Okay. I hope that helps you, June.
Love it. Thank you.
June, did I do okay? Or am I still only
oh, no, it is so good. It's incredible. You're like at the perfect time. And I'm so glad that I tuned in and I got to meet you, and I want to continue learning from you. Thank you.
Hey, all right. I got a winner. I got 2. I got an army of 2, right? All right. All right. So next one, I got John Goldberg here. This is, hey, John, there's my alumni fist bump there, brother. This fist bump. So this is one of the very best webinars I've ever participated in. Thank you so much. Hey, it's just a coincidence. I know you guys are gonna think, did I pay that guy? Like, you know, like maybe that's that Case Western like insider. Wrong. No, we just met. But thank you, John. I appreciate it. So that's Army of 3. It says, will we get copy of your slides? I would like to get some of the references. Okay, you must have missed it. You must have missed it, but I'll still tell you. Yes, Laura will be releasing the recording on YouTube. So it'll be tied to Startup Sack, and we'll also include it on our 3 Steps Forward webinars on our site. And then the slides will be downloadable on the 3 Steps Forward site. And Laura, I think she told me it'll be on the Startup Sack website. So don't worry, Richard, those Harvard Business Review articles, you can get started, but you better go get your Harvard Business Review subscription, because you only get 5 free in 1 month. See, like you guys didn't know that. See, like Doug's all like, you know, like, did I show my MBA origins? Like, look, I'm very smart. Like, I'm smarter than I look, right? Okay, so then let's see. I think Richard had to go. Oh no, Richard, you're still there. Did we do okay, Richard? That means you must have really liked the session, right? Okay, Richard had to go to maybe the little boys' room. Diana, here we go. Diana says, you are awesome and inspiring, and thank you so much for your time. I'm right there and need all the coaching I can. Hey, Diana, you got a very positive outlook, and you know, she was very interactive, so I applaud her. Yep, Laura answered the slide questions. June said, I need a link to you. It's right there. June, look, I put my email address out there. Like, what, I got to put my address as well? No, that's, you know, later on, June, later on. You know, I make seafood boil and all this kind of stuff in my backyard. You know, we'll hang out. So let's see. Juan, thanks, Doug. Randall, let's see. The differences in financing was very helpful. Hey, Randall, look, we did it, man, right? Like, that's good. You're going to do all kinds of stuff. Then June said it's awesome. There's a link to the slides. Awesome. Hey, we did it. All right. So if there's not any other questions, Laura, I know I'm a little over, but I owe you 8 minutes, Laura, but I hope this met the Startup Sack community need, right?
Yes.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you.